I'd like to start with the disadvantage, since that's their one justification under the issue of economic efficiency for voting negative instead of affirmative. So let's start with the most important issue, the criteria with their disadvantage. Their disadvantage was an increase in the federal debt. And I want to mention, first of all, that they have never quantified this in the constructives, like a specific number of how much we'd increase the debt. They said they used our evidence to show that we would increase it. That's not what we're asking. They haven't quantified it for you, so how do you weigh it under a criterion if there's no quantification to compare it to our quantification? And this is my first response, 11.1 GDP growth. That's a tangible number which we've given you to hold on to. And they asked you cross-examination, how much do they increase demand? Well, I took AP microeconomics, actually, which I did study for and learn from my history. But anyway, in economics, I learned that GDP can be measured by either demand or supply. So you can expect that that's how much we're going to be increasing demand, 11.1% GDP growth. My second response, no quantification. Again, they didn't quantify. My third response is multiply by 4. Multiply by 4. Let's turn it on the affirmative team, but on the negative team, and illustrate for you what's more efficient. If you lose, let's say, $200 billion of revenue, you gain $800 billion of wages, since they never directly responded to Alison Field's study. My fourth response is at a no breaking point. His impact, the most tangible one, was that of a credit downgrade. To prove that we'd have a credit downgrade, he'd have to prove that we're increasing our debt by a specific amount enough to put us over the edge. Because we have $16 trillion of debt in the current system. Is making that $16.1 trillion really going to cause a credit downgrade? They have not upholded this with evidence. Let's move down to the harms. Now, and then I'll address solvency. Now, in the harms, he said we have a low effective corporate tax rate, and that cross-border capital is contingent on the harms. My first response to the low effective tax rate is revenue. Revenue. The issue in our harms, Alison Felix did not say for every 1 percentage point decrease in the effective tax rate, there's $4 short of wages. She said revenue. And they have not contested the fact that we take $180 billion out of the private economy. And talking about accelerated depreciation, talking about the VAT, that doesn't contest that either. I don't care about other issues, because this $180 billion is essential because it's on investment. That is the fact of the current system. And in second response, that our harms are contingent on cross-border capital, and that my partner said so. Thankfully, I'm the 1A and he's not, because he doesn't know our 1AC hands down. In the 1AC, in the harms, we never mention cross-border capital. Our evidence is completely about domestic investment, completely irrelevant to foreign direct investment. There's no mention of cross-border capital. It says, quote, it increases the user cost of capital. And plus it says, and here's the beautiful quote. It says, of course, various credits and deductions reduce the effective corporate tax rate, but on some, our corporate tax still severely retards and misaligned investment. So sure, you can argue effective tax rate all you want, but our own evidence says it's irrelevant. And that was my partner's first response. I carry it through now. Let's move down to the issue of the solvency points. Now, I'm going to stack the first solvency speech on the second one, so I'm going to do a little bit of renumbering. Follow along. The first solvency point that they presented was lack of demand. Please tie this into solvency point 5, which was also about demand. Solvency point 4, which was about us lazy workers. By the way, I worked like 10 hours for my dad to get my eyes on that. I'm not a lazy worker. Yeah, so I'm going to be clumping and dumping here. But with the issue of demand and investment, he says that we can't get investment unless we have demand, and we have a lack of demand. I have 3 responses. The first one is that of profits, no investment to spend. In the current system, we have profits. That's an issue in the current system. But we have no incentive to spend. My second response is return on investment equals profit. Return on investment equals profit. Now, he made it seem like the capital gains tax is really the tax on investment for corporations. My response is no, that is absolutely false, as our quotations have said. Because the fact of the matter is that when a corporation invests, the return on investment that they expect is profit, which is taxed by the corporate income tax at 35%. So we are going to be encouraging them to spend those $2 trillion that are locked in the current system by making investment more profitable. They think at the margin. Imagine how many new products, new iPhones are not invested in because it's misaligned, because it's discouraged by this corporate income tax, which is on investment and wages. That is the fact of our plan. And their evidence only proves that the current system is inefficient. They say in the current system we're stockpiling $2 trillion. Is that something that you want to vote for? Let's move down to the issue of lazy workers. Again, I covered that. I don't really see how it's relevant. And the fact of the matter is that FDI is incremental. FDI is incremental. Now, we don't need to reach a magic competitive rate. Our evidence said a 1 percentage point decrease in the corporate tax rate increases 3.7% FDI. That's how companies think, because people think at the margin. When you decrease it marginally, it'll marginally increase. I believe I've covered all the issues. He said they're sitting on piles of cash. Solvency point 3 was about the root cause. Current capacity was about jobs. The bottom line is, if our statistics are too unbelievable, then that's a reason to vote for us, since they haven't presented counter statistics. Too good to be true. Vote for a plan that's really true. I just want to finally respond to the inflation argument. The lower bracket is unchanged with our plan. Our mandate says it's unchanged, so that means inflation policy with it will also be unchanged. In the end, under the criterion, you have a disadvantage versus quantified advantages. Thank you.